In a world that's pretty different than Minecraft worlds before it, Mojang has made sweeping changes to terrain generation. Today, we're gonna take a more detailed look at some of the changes they've been quietly making in the experimental snapshots for Minecraft 1.18, turning it into one of the biggest Minecraft updates of all time. Also, check out our sponsor, the like button, and click it. Number 1, really big mountains.
Goat, how are you surviving up here without an oxygen mask? It's way too high. The air is real thin. This is the highest elevation I have ever been on a naturally generated Minecraft mountain. I had to trek up here. I spent days hiking up through the powdered snow, dealing with the freezing cold. Right now, we're at y equals 256. If we get on top of one of the trees here, what's that gonna bring us to? That's gonna bring us to 266, by far the highest I have ever been in Minecraft. Now, of course, we've covered the fact that there's gonna be big mountains. It is the Caves and Cliffs, the real Caves and Cliffs update after all, but they have, in the recent experimental snapshots, upped the max height, at least on Java, so that now it can generate up to 250 to 260 as the max Y value. And it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's dramatic. That down there, oh, that's still in like the hundreds. The terrain around this particular peak is still pretty elevated. You have to go all the way down here to get back to sea level. This is sea level. Most of the time when you're walking around, you see some high mountains, you get to a lofty peaks biome, it'll send you up into like the 170s, 180s. Every now and again, you get way up here, and they will probably add an oxygen mask into the game because of the altitudes that you're gonna reach. The goat's apparently fine, you're adapted for this now. But then obviously, you can still construct a massive tower on top of this because the max world height's been increased so much too, and that's the whole idea, is they still wanna give you a bunch of real estate on top of these mountains to be able to build whatever sort of tower or base you would want to. Pretty dramatic sights. That's not the only change though when it comes to mountains. In the latest experimental snapshot, they introduced a change to the mountain generation, causing peakier peaks. That's their words, not mine. But as you can see, this is a very peaky peak. If you're afraid of heights or you suffer from vertigo, this might make you uncomfy. This one's at like 240, so pretty tall, and also completely hollowed out in the center. Pretty wild terrain generation, but that's not even the highlight of this area here, okay? Pretty peaky peaks, these ones going to like 220. But when we get to the other side, look at this. Look at how cool this area is. It's like a perfect valley on all sides. With the peaky peaks, you could just build a base in here and you never have to look to the outside world ever again. You're in your own little world. I think this is a pretty cool feature. The last world where I was at 260 on that mountain, I found that seed on Reddit. This one, totally random generation. And I have to imagine I'm not just that lucky. Other people probably find really equally cool things in generating their own worlds. So, there you have it for the mountains.
Number 2, there's a new non-snowy mountain biome called a Stoney Peak.
So at this point, you're probably familiar with, we have the Grove, the snowy slopes, the snowy peaks, the lofty peaks, the peaky blinders, but this is a Stoney Peak. It exists so that you can have big, tall mountain in a biome where it doesn't make as much sense to have it actually be snowy. Some biomes you could have either. In this case, we have a forest leading into the Stoney Peak here. One of the more distinctive features of the Stoney Peaks, though, is that they can have these ribbons of materials through them that can be calcite in this case, but they could also be andesite, granite, or gravel. I happen to think the calcite looks pretty cool. It's like you got a streak of marble. It's like a vein. Reminds me of some fancy stone, like you'd have a quarry here harvesting stuff for people's countertops. Cool different touch, so that not all the new mountain biomes are snowy necessarily. This is a good example I found of transitioning from lofty peaks, which have snow on them, into Stoney Peaks based on the surrounding biomes. So Minecraft always like tries to make the temperature gradient make sense. So in this case, right, we have some meadows down there and then some plains and forest on the other side. So it makes sense to have snowy mountains in the middle of them. On the other hand, over here, we've got savanna biomes, which are seen as hot. And so it wouldn't want to go from a savanna biome to snowy mountains. So instead, you get the Stoney Peaks, and that's why the Stoney Peaks exist. In this specific Stoney Peak, also, instead of the calcite, we've got the granite vein going through it.
Number 2.5, I guess.
Just giving a passing mention to now stone shores can also have the material ribbons generating through them. We've got some granite here. They can also do gravel. They can do andesite, which you'll see over here. But then instead of calcite, they do diorite, or unaliberite, as I should say.
Number 3, biomes can generate at extreme ranges of elevation.
Now, if I told you I was standing at y equals 218, you would probably think, oh, you're standing in a lofty peaks, something with snow, maybe Stoney Peaks. I haven't seen Stoney Peaks generate that high, but they might be able to. But what if I said, I'm standing in a plains biome, just happens to be really high up, but not just really high up, really extreme, ridiculous land formation. Now, there is a chance this might not be intentional to keep all the way into the full release of 1.18. I happen to think it's pretty darn cool, though. This is something you'd find in an amplified world, not in just standard terrain generation. It's pretty wild. Here's another example of a biome. It's just a regular ice spikes biome, but you can see it's got a lot more verticality to it than it might have previously. Y equals 140 plus right now. If you go to one of the top of these gigantic ice spikes over here, we're talking like Y equals 180. I mean, there's a lot of verticality here. And even though it's not one of the new mountain biomes and it is just ice spikes all the way through, you still have a lot of range from sea level up to the highest ice spike.
Number 4, aquifers are pretty cool and can lead you to big caves and stuff.
So if you find yourself wandering around in a 1.18 snapshot world, you might end up diving into a lake and being like, this is way deeper than I ever remember any Minecraft lakes before. And I believe this is what they're calling an aquifer. I realize that's not exactly what it means in real life, but there are really deep portions of particular lakes that are pretty noticeable. And these can actually be a good way to lead you into a larger underground cavern below it. So you'll notice right here, actually, if I go into spectator mode and drop right beneath, huge underground cavern, it's totally separated. I'm sure there are instances of terrain generation where you might be able to find a little opening and kind of squeak your way in, but there is a good chance that when you find a super deep portion of a lake like this, that if you go beneath it, you're gonna find a bigger cavernous area. The same applies over here. You have this deeper area going through the swamp, and then as you go down, when you go beneath it, there you go. So it can be a good way to find things like this. Yes, also there is just the part where the swamp kind of opens up into this ravine down here, but again, it's separate from the watery area, right? And it's not always guaranteed that you're gonna get the opening up to the surface. So by using the really, really deep portion of the lakes as an indicator, it can kind of help you to find some larger caverns underneath.
Number 5, villages can generate in meadow biomes at pretty high elevation.
All right, so it might be something that you'd expect, but meadows are now a biome that villages can generate. They can't generate in all the new biomes, like you're not going to see a village that's at Y equals 260 on top of a lofty peak, but you can still see it at like Y equals 130-ish, where as you can see, the air was a little bit too thin, all the villagers unalive, they're now zombies. That's what happens with lack of oxygen, is you turn into a zombie, I guess. But cool scenery. Maybe there would be another one where they adapted a little bit better to the thin air. As you can see, I've done some serious aerobic workouts here. I'm crushing it up here at this high elevation. Whew. Anyway.
Number 6, rivers are really, really cool now.
If I titled this video like X number of new things in Minecraft 1.18, number 6 will shock you. Well, this is number 6. Rivers have kind of been revamped. And what they've done is they've tried to kind of make it so that rivers won't just randomly peter out and just unalive end into like a mountain or something, and it'll just be a pain to traverse if you want to actually boat through it, and then you have to walk and then you have to place your boat down, or it's just the end of the river. Well, rivers, they go and they create dramatic terrain now. Just look at this scenery here, how wide, how deep the river is, ravine offshoots that you can go into if you want to, and then it goes into a deeper ravine which you could then go exploring. It's really cool. And this is not like an incredibly unique river. Like, it looks awesome, but you can find this sort of thing kind of all over the place now. And it will just like keep going and going with the dramatic cliff terrain on either side. There's something called a saddle valley, which I haven't been able to find myself because it requires a specific set of circumstances. But one of the devs who's working on the terrain, he posted an example of this really like wide open valley with mountains on either side that can happen as a result of it trying to keep the rivers a little bit more sizable and significant, good for travel. Actually, this is one of my favorite things that's been added so far. The rivers are actually rivers rather than just, a few little blocks of water source blocks that you can go for a few feet and then that's it. Oops, it's sorry, you can't travel anymore, and then it'll lead out to an ocean or something like that here, which is really cool. Or switch biomes. Anyway, yeah, go check it out for yourself. They're usable. They're awesome. They make for great scenery. Build a house on the side or something. I don't know.
Number 7. Pillager Towers can spawn at high elevation.
Okay, so the official changelog line here is that Pillager Towers can spawn in the new mountain biomes. That said, unfortunately, there is no way to do a locate structure in particular biome command, but this is the highest up pillager tower I've been able to find. Now, it's not in one of the new mountain biomes, but it is a case where you have a taiga that has generated over a larger Y range than you would see pre 1.18, and with that comes a pillager tower that's pretty up here. And I also like the fact that over here, unrelated to the pillager tower, you have it's like a sub biome of a snowy area. It almost looks like, this is the part of the cliffs in the taiga that's not exposed to sunlight or something. And so you get some snow there, whereas over here where the sunlight hits, you don't get the snow. Obviously, that's not actually what's happening there, but it just gives that cool impression. So I figured I'd call it out. But there you go. Some really high up pillager towers, as you can see once again when we come back over here. I don't know, it's pretty intimidating to see a fortress way up on the hill like that.
Number 8. Snowy mountains are no longer dirty.
Probably sounds like kind of a weird one, but it is actually a thing that has been done, which is that when it comes to the snowy slopes and the snow-capped peaks, you'll notice that where the snow kind of fades away, it's all stone. There's no more dirt. There might be some dirt down there, but these are very clean. They are not very dirty biomes. It's just stone. You have snow. Basically, the snow has replaced any dirt and grass that you might have, and underneath, it's all stone, which you can see when you have more of the abrupt drop-offs where the snow doesn't stack up. Makes it look just ever so slightly different. It kind of means, right, like this is a Stoney Peak. It just happens to have snow on top of it, so it's keeping that sort of continuity, because it wouldn't make sense, if you had dirt underneath the snow-capped peaks, but then you had a Stoney Peak, which was stone with no dirt on it, because it just is covered by the... You get it? No?
Number 9. This ravine is super swick.
Okay, yeah, this one has nothing to do with any specific feature update for 1.18. I just came across this ravine, and it's pretty awesome. So I wanted to show it, and it's number 9, because it's an example of things that you'll be able to find in Minecraft 1.18, hopefully still, once it's fully released. Look at this, you can see all the way through, out the other side. It's like a ravine/tunnel, and you can come all the way down here, and then you can just drop all the way down, stupid glow squid, and you can go all the way down to Deep Slate, How cool is that? And it just keeps going, and it just keeps going down there. Or you can come back up, or you can look in this other ravine that's underneath that opens back up into this other area. It's like double ravine intersection tunnels on top of each other. Look at the absolute magnitude of this whole ravine setup thing. You could not find anything like this pre 1.18. And then just so that we can get it to an even number 10, the Badland here is pretty cool. I don't know, I got a cool shot of one of the caves going up to the surface here in the Badland, and I thought it was worth showcasing that B-roll. So also, though, you know, just another example of really cool deep slate coming on up all the way. And then you get up into the Badlands area up here. And then the Badland also has a greater span of Y values into it. Like you see this, okay, this is kind of normal. But then you can look over there. You're like, oh, it goes even higher than it was before. And then you got the cool, like, shattered Badland bits over there. And then the other cave over here where I got the cool B-roll shot, which is mostly why I wanted to show this, and also to make it an even 10 things about Minecraft 1.18 is pretty cool. But, you know, just this thing over here is pretty nifty. If you go down, you got that little lake, then the lake goes into this whole thing, and it's worth showing. There's a lot of things worth showing. In fact, it was hard to make up my mind, but I do hope you've enjoyed taking a look. Make sure to like the video if you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, hit the bell, tune in for future videos, and thanks so much for watching. I'm looking forward to Minecraft 1.18. Should be pretty awesome. I'll see you next time.